Hey everybody, welcome back to the shop. So I've got a friend at work who's got two little boys. He's a great father. And that guy actually went out and bought himself, or those boys, a little shed, and he's calling it their clubhouse. He said, hey, could you whip up a sign for me that I can present to those two little boys? You know I can't resist something like that. So we're going to take the Shapeoko, we're going to take the Carveco, we're going to take a little bit of Worko, and we're going to make them a sign. Let's get started. Alright, my friend Dennis, let's call him Dennis because, well, that's his name. I said to him, Dennis, what size sign do you want for these boys? And he said, well, he answered me very specifically. Very, very specific answer, and I quote, I don't know, you're the woodworker. I said, okay, I'll come up with something. He did give me a little basis for what he wanted on the sign, and we'll show you that when we get on the mill and get that going. But in the meantime, we're going to take this piece of poplar and we're going to make a sign that is 14 by 24. However, I've learned that on the mill, one of the easiest ways to clamp down your project is to oversize your stock and use screws right into the bed or the wasteboard of your CNC if your CNC has the ability to do that. Some CNCs on the higher end have aluminum extrusions that have fancy clamps. The Shapeoko uses a piece of MDF, so we're going to use oversized stock and screws. Let's cut this thing down and get it the right size. So we're going to use the one-sided sled here, and the first thing we need to do is raise the blade to the proper height. And then another trick, when you have your tape measure, don't take it out of your pocket. That frees up your hands. Leave it attached to your hip. We're going to cut these off into 3 equal pieces. Actually 4, one done off the camera. And my helper is taking a break. And glue up is easily done. This is my little trick here for putting boards on a set of clamps, one side then the other. And I squeeze the boards together while I apply the glue a little bit faster, at least in my opinion. Tighten them up. Damp cloth removes the excess. Some people don't do that. They like to scrape it off. I don't. I think that's a lot of extra work for nothing. Here's something I've been doing recently that has sped up glue ups, and that's a can bottle cut in half with some water in it to clean the brush. Then the next time you use the brush, you don't have to spend 45 minutes pulling that dried glue off. Although there is a level of satisfaction doing that, I suppose. And we have an hour on the timer. Okay, so while we're waiting for the glue to dry, I thought this was a good opportunity to talk about this carve and to remind you to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. But anyway, as far as this carve is concerned, it's going to be a standard V-carve, the 90-degree V-bit. We're going to limit the maximum depth to 0.125, an eighth of an inch. We're going to, it's a standard female V-carve, so we're going to remove the design. Then we're going to spray paint the design, whatever color I decide, probably black. I've got my eye on that hunter green over there, but probably black. Then we're going to go back through and we're going to sand it off so that it exposes the wood, leaves the paint. Then we're going to come back in with some stain and stain the board. After the carve is finished, and we remove it off of the mill obviously, we're going to cut it to size on the table saw so that it's the proper dimension. We're going to apply some polyurethane, some exterior polyurethane, and we're going to hand it to Dennis and hope for the best. So we've only got another 40 minutes to wait for the glue, and if you'd like I can keep rambling, or I can fade this camera out and come back in when the glue is dry. You know I'm going to fade it out. So there's no better time to clean up your shop than when you're waiting for glue to dry. Brushing off and maintaining your CNC is paramount to good performance. Now, if you pay attention here, you're going to find that Atlas's arch nemesis, he's coming now. The dust collector is running, and he knows it. Nothing more fun in the shop than playing with him with that dust collector and my shop-made vacuum attachment. Eventually you have to tell him to stop, or otherwise he gets rather violent, as you can see here. Well, my patience gets the better of me here, and what I'm doing is putting in the screw holes for the hold down screws. Three, two, one. One very important point to mention: if you're going to oversize your stock, put the origin in the center of your workspace, not on any of these corners. Simple crosshair will tell you where the center is, like so, and work off the center, because center is center. It doesn't matter if this thing is 6 feet wide by 30 feet wide. The center will always be the center. One other point, more and more I find if I put these pieces on the mill and I just do a quick surfacing, flatten them out, it gives me a better finished project. I'll show you that quick programming here, then we'll get over on the mill. Okay, as you can see, I've opened up Maker Plus here, and out in the shop I said I like to increase the size of the stock so that I can screw down the project and hold it flat. It's simpler. Let's go to new model, and the reason I bring that up is because here is the dimensions of the sign we made, 24 by 14. In this case, we're going to surface this board, and I like to surface an area greater than the actual size of the stock. So when the end mill is passing over air and not touching the stock, I can simply pause the machine or stop the machine, and I've completely covered the entire piece. I don't have to worry about being right on the money on the edge. It all works much simpler. So in this case, I increased the size, the overall dimension of my work area by 2 inches on each dimension. So it then becomes 24 by 16. Origin still in the center. Click OK. Now to surface this wasteboard is simple at this point then. Click on your square tool, hover in the corner, left click, drag to the right, create a square that encompasses the entire work surface. And yes, your sign is only 14 by 22, but this is not the sign. We're just surfacing the board, and I want to make sure that what I'm doing covers the entire piece. So create the square over here. Close this out. We don't need it any longer. Go to Tool Paths, drop down to Area Clearance. Start depth is 0. Finish depth, I run typically between 0.03 and 0.06. We can enter that here. Select a tool. The biggest tool I have is 1/4 inch end mill. Select that. We can slide down. We want to change the movement from raster to offset. This is tool number 1. Spindle speed, plunge rate, feed rate, all of these things are perfectly fine. Scrolling down, I've adjusted my machine safe height to 0.1, and my material thickness becomes 0.75. It really doesn't matter, but that's a good number to put in there. Click OK. Give it a name. Let's call it flat sign. And calculate now. Close out your tools. As you can see, you're going to have an area clearance that covers the entire board. It'll start in the center, work its way around, and eventually it'll be cutting over top of nothing. And at that point, like I said, we hit stop and let the machine go to home, remain, or we continue to use the center as the origin. Nothing changes. We select the next file to run, which happens to be the sine, and it does its magic. Click Save Toolpaths. We would give it a name. As you can see, my last project was the Ratchford sine. I would change this to flat sine, which I can do here. I'll save to the desktop. Click it once more out of habit to ensure it saves. Yes, I want to overwrite it. Close this out. We can minimize this, and it's right here. And that's all there is to the programming to surface the board. Now, the one thing to remember is how deep I made the countersink for these screws. I'm going to take off 1/16 of an inch, or just a frog's hair less. Bury the screws. You don't want to run your mill into those screws. And in case you're wondering, frogs don't have hair. Okay, so for the sake of accuracy, I'm going to use this 60-degree V-bit to locate my X and Y axis. I'm going to run the machine back to the center mark that I made, use this only to determine X and Y, take it out, put the correct bit in for the surfacing process, zero that for the Z or the height, and we're going to rock and roll. And if you don't have one of these, I highly recommend you get yourself one, because that makes doing this right here a breeze. 0x, 0y, bring the machine forward, change to the 1/4 inch end mill. Wrap it back to the current X and Y. Let's get out the paper, being careful not to dive into your wood. And there it is. Now we'll zero the Z, and we will run this program and flatten this board after we put in our dust boot. Okay, so now that it's flat, I like to take the old Makita sander here, and you can see there's a line right there and right there. Maybe you can't see it in the camera. It's very faint, but I like to take the sander and flat sand this just a little bit to remove them. That way you don't have to do this after the carve is finished. Oh, and I should say, steady, even pace back and forth across this thing. No tipping or bobbing or weaving. Nice and straight, back and forth, until I can't see those lines. And then we bring the mill back over and proceed. Alright, so to help stop bleed through, we're going to blast it with this guy here for a couple of coats. Can't have your nozzle spraying in here. Let's try that again. Now I'm not too worried about being able to put stain here and these little dots here because I'm going to sand that surface back to bare wood. So bear with me. What you're hearing is rain. I missed it by that much. Come here, you. So did he. And this one. Now I'm going to cut a 15-degree angle on this to shed water, and I'm going to paint black the outside edge. So I'm going to cut that first, then paint. That way the holes are in, and we can come back in and put these back in later. Alright everybody, I'm going to give you the greatest painting tip, the biggest secret of all time right now. Nobody will tell you this, but I'm going to. How do you get that cap off of this can? Squeeze it. It comes right off. It's incredible. Or, that don't work. Squeeze it. Alright folks, there you go. A nice sign for a couple of outstanding young guys. I threatened to call this the Ratchford Gentlemen's Club, but he said his wife wouldn't go for that. At any rate, I hope you all got something out of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it maybe gave you a little smile. Please give us a like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. And as always, we'll catch you on the next one.